Be me. 26F. Grad school, gender studies. Yeah, I know. Go ahead. Get all the jokes out now. Got my own apartment downtown. A circle of friends who are just as sharp and switched on as I am. I'm doing important work. I'm challenging systems of oppression. My thesis is on the performance of masculinity in post-capitalist urban environments. Fancy words for why men are such a mess these days. And lately, I've had the perfect case study. It's something my friends and I have all been talking about. Men don't approach us anymore, like at all. We'll go out to a nice cocktail bar, the kind with dim lighting and overpriced drinks. We look good. We know we look good. We put in the effort. We sit at a table. We laugh. We have a good time. And the men, they just don't. They stay with their friends, staring into their beers. They flick through their phones, faces lit up by the blue glow. They might glance over, but it's a fleeting, almost fearful look. No one comes over to say hello. No one offers to buy a drink. The only men who interact with us are the bartenders, because they have to. We have a group chat dedicated to this phenomenon. Sasha. It's like we're invisible. Or maybe we're Medusa and they're scared they'll turn to stone. Mia. It's the patriarchy collapsing in on itself. They don't know how to function without being in charge. My take, which I posted on my blog and got 5,000 likes, men's egos are too fragile to handle rejection from a powerful, independent woman. They'd rather not try at all than risk the hit to their masculinity. It's emasculating for them to see women who don't need them, so they retreat. They hide on Reddit, complaining about femoids and convincing each other that women are the problem. It's pathetic, but also kind of hilarious. We'd laugh about it, screenshotting Tinder profiles of guys holding up fish and saying, "This is what we're dealing with." The consensus in our circle was clear. This was a man problem. They were broken, intimidated, obsolete. A new model of masculinity needed to emerge, one that wasn't terrified of a woman with a master's degree and a spine. And I was going to be the one to document it. My thesis advisor loved the idea. A field study, ethnographic research into the silent modern man. Brilliant, Quinn. So, I decided to turn my life into a research project. The mission: get approached in the wild, document the experience, or more likely, the lack thereof. I'd gather irrefutable proof that men had simply given up. Phase 1. The field. For 2 months, I made it my part-time job. Wednesday nights, I'd go to a trendy bookstore with a cafe. I'd sit with a book, something intellectual but not too intimidating. Like Joan Didion, I'd make eye contact with guys browsing the philosophy section. Offer a small, inviting smile. Nothing. They'd just look away, suddenly fascinated by the spine of a book they had no intention of buying. One guy literally tripped over a stool trying to get away from my gaze too quickly. Pathetic. Friday nights, me and Sasha would hit the bars. Not the grimy college ones, but upscale places where guys in their late 20s and 30s with actual jobs went. We'd strategically position ourselves near the bar, creating an open space for someone to slide in. We talked, we laughed, we made ourselves seem fun and approachable. Dozens of men would cycle past us to get drinks. They'd say, "Excuse me," get their drink, and retreat back to their huddle of bros like they'd just braved a dragon's lair. The only guy who talked to me one night was a 50-year-old finance bro who was clearly on his third divorce. His opening line was, "My portfolio has performed exceptionally well this quarter." I nearly threw my $18 gin and tonic in his face. This wasn't the data I was looking for. Saturdays, I'd try something wholesome. The farmer's market. I'd wander around, holding a canvas tote bag, looking thoughtfully at organic kale. Surely a nice, normal guy would comment on the quality of the heirloom tomatoes or something. Nope. I asked one guy if he knew if the sourdough was any good. He looked at me like I'd just served him with a lawsuit. I guess. It's bread. He then practically sprinted to the kombucha stand. My notes from that day. Subject exhibits extreme social anxiety when faced with a simple, low-stakes inquiry. Aversion to casual female interaction is pronounced. My frustration was building. It wasn't just my thesis anymore, it was personal. Am I not attractive? No, that's not it. I know I'm conventionally attractive. I get compliments from my friends, family, the gay guys at my hair salon. I get likes on my Instagram photos. The problem wasn't me, it had to be them. Their collective nerve had just been severed. Phase 2. The digital battlefield. Fine. If they won't approach me in person, I'll meet them where they live, online. I reactivated my Hinge and Bumble profiles, updated my pictures, wrote a witty, engaging bio that mentioned my love for hiking, indie films, and dismantling patriarchal structures. Maybe I should have left that last part out, but authenticity is key, right? The matches came pouring in. Vindication. See, I'm still desirable. My theory is correct. They're only brave behind a screen, but the conversations, they were a wasteland. Hey, hi, what you doing? Not much, you. It was like trying to get blood from a stone. I'm on Bumble where the woman has to message first. I'd put in the effort. I'd ask an engaging question based on their profile. Hey, I see you went to Peru. I've always wanted to go. What was the best part of your trip? Response: it was cool. The mountains were nice. That's it. That's all I get. I'm teeing you up, giving you a perfect opportunity to share a story, to ask me a question back. And I get nothing. It felt less like a conversation and more like a deposition. I went on a few dates. They were all uniformly awful. Date 1. A graphic designer named Josh. We met for coffee. The entire time, he seemed like he was at a job interview he didn't want. He answered my questions in monosyllables and never asked any of his own. He just kept looking around the cafe, at his phone, anywhere but at me. When the bill came, he stared at it. I stared at him. It was a standoff. My ideology says we should split it. My experience says the man has always at least offered. After a solid 30 seconds of painful silence, I said, "Should we just split it?" He looked relieved. "Oh yeah, cool." We paid. We walked out. He said, "Well, this was nice. Have a good one." And just walked away. No hug, no "I'll text you," nothing. My notes. Subject displayed a complete lack of initiative or interest. The transaction felt purely utilitarian, devoid of any romantic or social intent. Date 2. An engineer named Ben. This one was slightly better. He could actually form sentences, but he was guarded. So incredibly guarded. He talked about his work, his hobbies, gaming, board games. Safe topics. I tried to go deeper. "What are you passionate about, Ben?" He flinched. Actually flinched. I don't know. I guess I'm passionate about building efficient systems. I tried to talk about my thesis. I used the friendly watered down version. I'm studying how men and women are communicating differently these days. He immediately clammed up. Huh. Cool. The check came. He paid, but it felt like he was paying a parking ticket, not trying to be chivalrous. At the end of the date, he gave me a side hug like I was his aunt. "I'll be in touch," he said, which I knew was a lie. He texted me 2 hours later. "Hey, had a nice time, but I don't think we're a match. Wish you the best." At least he was direct, but it was another data point. Men were terrified of genuine connection. They wanted to talk about things, not feelings. They saw dating as a risk to be managed, not an opportunity for joy. It was all fitting perfectly into my thesis. The evidence was overwhelming. I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, buzzing about my research. My mum was listening patiently, my dad was half watching golf. My older brother Dave was there. Dave is the complete opposite of me. He's a mechanic, owns his own garage. He's 31, single, lives a simple life. He's a good guy, I guess. We've never been super close. He thinks my education is a waste of money, and I think his highest cultural achievement is knowing every line from Dumb and Dumber. I was on a roll, talking about the failed dates, the silent bars, the man's session of confidence. And they're just so fragile, I said, finishing my rant. They can't handle a woman who has her own opinions and her own money. It shatters their whole worldview, so they just log off. Mum nodded. "It's a shame. You're a real catch, sweetie." Dad grunted from the couch. "Uh-huh." Dave was quiet, just slowly eating his mashed potatoes. He hadn't said a word. "What do you think, Dave?" I asked, feeling smug. "You're out there. You see it, right? The guys at your garage must be the same." He finished his bite, chewed for a comically long time, and then put his fork down. He looked at me, not with anger, but with a deep, profound tiredness. It was a look I'd never seen from him before. "You really want to know?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah, of course," I said, leaning forward, ready for another anecdote to support my theory. You're not going to like it. I'm a big girl, Dave. I can handle it. He sighed, a heavy, weary sound. Quinn, you're not wrong. We have given up. But you've got the why completely, 100% backward. I just stared at him. Backwards? What did he mean? It's not because we're intimidated, he said, leaning his elbows on the table. It's not because you have a degree or make your own money. Honestly, no one cares about that. It's good. We want you to be successful. It's because we're tired. Tired of what? I asked, my voice dripping with skepticism. The crushing weight of your privilege? He actually chuckled. A sad, humorless sound. No. Tired of the game. You think it's hilarious that we're scared to approach you. You're right. We are scared. But not of you. We're scared of what happens if we do it wrong. One wrong move, one awkward compliment, and we're labeled a creep. We're the subject of a group chat, a cautionary tale on your blog. We could get a complaint filed with HR if it's a coworker. Videos go viral of guys getting shot down for trying. Why would anyone risk that? So you think you're entitled to a woman's attention? I shot back, my feminist defenses flaring up. No, he said calmly. We think we're entitled to not be treated like a potential predator for saying hello. A no thank you is fine. That's normal. But it's not just that anymore. It's the public shaming, the dissection of our motives, the assumption that we're all secretly pigs. He continued. You sit there in a bar with your friends, looking like a panel of judges on the X Factor. You're not looking for a conversation, you're looking for a performance. And we know we're going to be judged, and the score is always 0. I started to say something, but he held up his hand. Let me finish. You complained about the guy on the date who didn't talk. Let me tell you about Ben the engineer. Guys like him, smart guys, they think in systems, risk versus reward. What's the reward for opening up? For being vulnerable like all the articles tell us to be? He gets a partner? I offered. Maybe. Or he gets his vulnerability used against him in the first argument. He gets told his problems aren't as bad as yours. He gets told to man up after being asked to open up. He has a problem at work? Well, you have to deal with misogyny every day, so his problem is trivial. He's feeling depressed? You have to deal with the emotional labor of a dozen people, so he should just get over it. We've seen it happen to our friends. We've had it happen to us. So we learn. We stop talking. We build efficient systems to protect ourselves. We talk about things, not feelings, because things can't be turned into weapons. My mouth was dry. I recognized some of those lines. I'd said them myself to an ex-boyfriend. He wasn't done. And the money. Oh man, the money. You want to split the check, and you see that as you being progressive. Fine. But what does that signal to the guy? The unspoken rule for generations was that the man pays to signal his intent and his ability to provide. Now, you want 50-50 on the bill, which is fair. But do you want 50-50 on everything else? Or is it just on the things that benefit you? He leaned in closer. Do you ask guys out as much as you want them to ask you out? Do you plan the dates? Do you text first? Do you still want him to be the one to kill the spider, to reach the high shelf, to drive on the long trip, to take charge in an emergency? You want an equal partner, but you also want a safety net. You want us to shed all the toxic parts of traditional masculinity but keep all the convenient parts. That's a gross oversimplification, I stammered, feeling my intellectual fortress start to crumble. Is it? Sasha broke up with her last boyfriend because he lacked ambition, because he was happy being a high school teacher and didn't want to grind himself to dust to become principal. Mia moans that there are no good men, but her checklist is a 6-foot-tall doctor who also is in touch with his feelings, loves to travel, wants kids but will also do 50% of the childcare, is a feminist, has a great family, and makes her laugh. You're not looking for a partner, Quinn. You're writing a job description for a unicorn, and you're paying in the pleasure of your company. The room was silent except for the low drone of the golf tournament on TV. My mum was looking at her plate. My dad had muted the TV. You talk about my privilege, Dave said, his voice softer now. Let me tell you about my privilege. I see my buddy Mark go through a divorce. He was the breadwinner. She cheated. The court gives her the house, the kids, and half his future income. His privilege is getting to see his kids every other weekend if he's lucky. I see my friend Kevin, a great dad, get his name dragged through the mud with false accusations just so his ex could get leverage in a custody dispute. I see guys get their lives ruined. We're told our problems aren't real, We don't talk about their feelings. But when we do, we're told we're weak or that our problems aren't valid. We're told we're the problem. We're the oppressors. We're toxic. We're fragile. You write blog posts about it. He pointed a finger at me, not accusingly, just factually. You and your friends have spent years talking, writing, and shouting about how terrible men are, and now you're confused and angry that we've finally started to believe you. We haven't stopped approaching women. We've stopped approaching you. We're looking for peace, Quinn, not a battle. We're looking for a partner, not a project to be fixed or an opponent in a debate. We're looking for someone to build a life with, not someone who's going to write a thesis about our failings. So where are you looking? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Hobby groups, sports leagues, through friends of friends, places where you get to know someone as a person first, not as a potential date on an interview. Places where the stakes are lower. We're opting out of the game. That's why the guys in the bar don't approach you. They've already lost, so why play? He stood up and took his plate to the sink. Dinner was great, Mum. He walked past me, put a hand on my shoulder for a second, and then left. I just sat there, in the quiet dining room. Every word he said was an echo of a conversation I'd had, a thought I'd written, an attitude I'd proudly displayed. My entire worldview, the foundation of my identity, had been bulldozed in 10 minutes by a mechanic who likes Dumb and Dumber. The drive home was a blur. I got to my apartment and just stood in the living room. It felt different, colder. My wall of books on feminist theory seemed to be mocking me. I thought about Mike, a boyfriend from a few years ago. He was a sweet guy and musician. I remembered him trying to tell me about the pressure he felt from his parents. I told him that was nothing compared to the pressure of societal expectations on women. I dismissed him. I remembered him being short on rent one month because a gig fell through. I paid my half and told him he needed to be more responsible. All while I secretly enjoyed the feeling of being the more stable one. I remembered our final argument. He said, I feel like I'm just a supporting character in your life, Quinn. My only role is to agree with you and support you. But where's my support? My response? That's what it feels like to be a woman for centuries. Welcome to equality. He left a week later. I told all my friends it was because he couldn't handle a strong woman. They all agreed. We drank wine and celebrated my liberation. I spent the next few weeks in a haze. I started observing, not as a researcher, but just as a person. I saw Mia on a date, grilling the guy about his 5-year plan before the appetizers had even arrived. I heard Sasha telling a guy she'd just met that his taste in movies was problematic. I saw what Dave was talking about. We weren't looking for partners, we were vetting candidates, and we were relentless. I stopped going out, I stopped writing on my blog. I couldn't. A month later, I was at a wedding for one of my cousins. It was a big, happy affair. I was sitting at a table, nursing a glass of champagne, feeling like a ghost. Then I saw him, Mark, a friend of my cousin's husband. I'd met him a few times. He was an architect, quiet, smart, with a kind smile. I'd always thought he was cute in a he'd never be interested in me kind of way. He was standing alone by the gift table, and a thought hit me, clear as a bell. Dave's voice. Do you ask guys out? No, never. It was my right to be pursued. My heart started pounding. Screw my thesis, screw the rules, screw my pride. I stood up, smoothed down my dress, and walked over to him. Hi, Mark. I'm Quinn, Sarah's cousin. He turned and that kind smile appeared. Hey, Quinn, I remember you. You're the writer, right? Something like that, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Enjoying the wedding industry complex? He laughed. A real laugh, trying my best. It's a nice ceremony, though. We talked for 20 minutes, about architecture, about the awful DJ, about his recent hiking trip. It was easy. He was a good listener. He asked questions. He seemed genuinely interested. I felt a flicker of hope, a warmth I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Maybe Dave was wrong. Maybe I just had to be the one to initiate. Later, during the reception, I saw him walking across the dance floor. He was walking towards a woman sitting at a table in the corner. She wasn't a model. She wasn't dressed to the nines. She was wearing a simple dress and glasses. She looked normal, kind. He reached her table, leaned down, and kissed her. She smiled up at him, a smile of pure, uncomplicated affection. He sat down, took her hand, and they just sat there, watching the dancers, perfectly content in their own little world. I felt the floor drop out from under me. Of course. Of course he had a girlfriend. A guy like that wouldn't be single. I was close enough to hear their friends talking to them. So how did you two even meet? And I heard his girlfriend answer, Oh, we're in the same birdwatching group. We were friends for about a year before he finally asked me out. Birdwatching. My brother's words came rushing back. Hobby groups. Places where you get to know someone as a person first. It wasn't a game to them. It was a friendship that blossomed. I walked out of the reception hall and stood on the patio, the cool night air doing nothing to stop the burning in my cheeks. The laughter and music from inside felt a million miles away. I saw it all so clearly. The men weren't hiding on Reddit or in their parents' basements. They were out there. They were building things, teaching kids, watching birds. They were falling in love, getting married, and building lives. They hadn't retreated from the world. They had just retreated from mine. The silence I had mistaken for fragility and fear was something else entirely. It was a choice. They had looked at the game, at the judges, at the endless tests and shifting goalposts, and they had quietly, calmly put down the controller and walked out of the arcade. They didn't want to play.